Hey guys, one of the things that I didn't see coming when I turned 50 was this feeling I couldn't shake for a few years. And I was still working at my business, I was still showing up, but something felt off. And I remember sitting on my couch thinking to myself about this feeling that I had a hard time describing. So I sat there for 30 minutes with this internal dialogue with myself, and I wasn't depressed, but I have to admit I felt kind of sad because uh, my aunt had passed away recently. And she was someone I was really close to, and then a couple of my friends passed away unexpectedly. So I felt tired, even though I was well rested, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I was burning out. And that's what I initially thought I was going through was burnout, but it wasn't that. And I realized for the first time, I felt like I was losing motivation to strive for more because all my life I've always worked really hard and put my head down and never questioned it. I think for years, for me anyways, I spent many decades, fighting this internal battle to make sense of, my traumatic childhood while pushing myself to succeed every day. I really took holidays. I was always chasing the brass ring, always wanted to chase that success because growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. So it was very important for myself and also very important for my parents too, because they didn't want to see me in the same situation as they were when we were growing up. So I kept telling myself that, I'll slow down when I reached a certain milestone. And each time I just kept moving the goalposts forward. And I kept telling myself, when I get this deal, I'll finally rest. And I never did. I just kept pushing for more until one evening when I was sitting there in that quiet room, I finally admitted that, I couldn't continue doing this till the age of 65. Now I'm a martial artist, and an entrepreneur, so hard work is not something I was ever afraid of. But I started to ask myself, then why did I question if I could do this for another decade till I'm 65? Because I felt like at times I was suffocating. And I think this is where it gets really complicated because on paper and from the outside, you know, everything seemed fine. I had income, I had my health, um, and I had all the things that, I always wanted. A great career. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more, which is to teach martial arts, which has always been a dream of mine. So I started asking myself a question, and that is something I never asked um, before, and that is what if I retired? What am I really retiring from? I never asked, can I retire because I felt that, I had enough to. But when I thought about it, um, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy my work anymore. I just kind of, got tired of what the work had become. The constant emails coming in that, didn't matter. Um, the meetings that I would have that could have been done, in a minute through a text message. And all this, thinking about all this, wow, I was thinking, about, hey, maybe I should be climbing Mount Fuji, visiting Japan before my body gives out. Growing up in the 80s, my parents always said, don't complain. Just work hard, get an education, get a good job, make money, build a family, and you can do anything you want afterwards. But right now, you just put your head down and work and don't complain. And I didn't. And like so many Gen Xers, we did this for the next 35 plus years. Never complaining about having to do this. But now, a lot of us, or most of us, are in our 50s, and the body starts sending you signals that the mind has been ignoring for years. Your health scare, feeling exhausted, even though you've, got enough sleep, and maybe a lot of you are starting to feel a little bit short fused as well. I went through a health scare a few years ago, and that particular incident really, pulled the curtain back for me. And because, when something like that happens, you realize that you don't have as much time as you thought, and you start taking these moments, these enjoyable moments that you have for granted, right? And you slowly realize that, all those things that you've been chasing all these years, the fancy car, the bigger house, the fancy watches, showing your friends and everyone around you that you made it, none of that matters anymore. And you start to care about things like, did I live the life that was actually mine? Or did I give my life away to work? Did I give my life away to a corporation? I think many of us Gen Xers are starting to get tired of feeling that we were used and spit out by a corporation when we're no longer needed. I mean, I'm hearing from friends, family, about how they are getting laid off from their job because they're costing the company too much. And, these people, I remember them calling me and, informing me that they can't go out for dinner or meet up with me because they're busy working on the weekends or working overtime. And they rarely, took time to enjoy for themselves. So, I start to think about, how can I guess, change my ways, right? Change the way I'm going to live in my 50s and beyond. And this is what I started doing. I mean, I can't say for other people, but this is what had worked for me. First of all, I stopped pretending that I didn't have an issue, right? I did. So I had to come to grips with that. Secondly, I decided to design the life that I wanted on my terms and decide on things I want to do in the second half of my life, and the things that really bring joy to my life that didn't really have anything to really do with my current profession. So I started making, smaller moves. Like I haven't stepped away entirely from my business. I still am involved with it, but involved a little bit less. And I started to do other stuff that was outside of my expertise, which is the martial arts. So I started to create content that was totally unrelated to my profession. I started to plan on traveling. And it's been great. I mean, I'm heading off to visit Asia in October, and that's going to be a very eye-opening experience. I also started thinking about what kind of legacy I want to leave behind. I've always been involved with helping helping charities that serve underprivileged youth. So I want to continue on doing that. And I thought about it and I said, even a samurai warrior, has to put their sword down eventually, right? So I decided to start living my best life today before Father Time decides for me after age of 65. And from that experience, from sharing my experience, I would love to hear from all of you. When did you first hear this quiet voice telling you that I can't do this work for 15 more years? What were you doing? And where were you? And because I think a lot of us were carrying this feeling around for a long time and never expressing it out loud because that's the way we were raised as Gen X kids, latchkey kids, whatever you want to call it. So I'd love to hear what your version looks like because, I really love hearing the stories from everyone. I mean, I learn so much all the time hearing you guys' stories. So, you have to remember that it's not only just retiring from your job, but how are you reinventing yourself for the second half of your life? So if this video resonates with you, feel free to like, share, or subscribe, and feel free to check out my next video, and I'll see you next time. Take care.